Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle Jane Martin, and today we're tackling a question that's been on a lot of people's minds, and that is, what happens if Social Security doesn't stretch as far as you thought? Well, a recent report suggests that this could become a reality sooner than expected. Joining me today is Phillip Statler. He's the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. He's here to help us break it all down, but most importantly, share steps that you can stay ahead, that you can take to stay ahead. So, Phillip, I want to share this report with you that says, according to the annual Social Security and Medicare Trustees report, it says that the Social Security Retirement Trust Fund could possibly run out by 2033 and even earlier than last year's estimate. So, as we just jump right in here, what should listeners know about this?
Well, you're right. I mean, that is one of the things that seems to be happening, is that the trust fund is shrinking a little faster than anticipated. And so we're talking about 2033, which doesn't really sound like it's that far away when you start looking at the numbers, right? That's 8 years. And so it is a wake-up call, I think, that Social Security is facing more pressure than ever. It continues to be hammered year in, year out as more retirees jump on the system. And then we've got policy changes like increased benefits with inflation. They've been putting greater strains on the system than we've seen before. And then we've got lower than expected wages and a declining birth rate, which is probably even more important than the lower than expected wages, because the lower wages are happening because the high-end people, they're the baby boomers and they're retiring. But even more important than that is the declining birth rate. It's expensive to raise children, and more people are opting not to have children. So the low birth rate means we don't have as many people coming into jobs and paying into the system. So that's fewer contributions that we're going to see there. And the other thing I think is that without any kind of action, which we've seen, Congress just definitely doesn't want to make any changes hardly at all to Social Security, that benefits could drop by as much as 23%, which is a serious reduction for anyone that's relying on that income month in and month out, Danielle.
That's right. And Phillip, I'm sure a lot of people have questions about this. So what can retirees and pre-retirees do to help protect themselves from potential cuts to their Social Security?
Well, I think it starts with planning. And I know we talk about that a lot on the show, but it really does boil down to that. We need to start planning now. Don't put it off. We need to build diversified retirement income portfolios and build diversified retirement income plans as a whole. You need to incorporate investments, savings, and passive income streams. We need to focus on really maximizing returns with tax-efficient strategies, using things like Roth contributions or income-producing assets. I mean, those things are going to play a key role in creating income in retirement. And I think the other thing is maintain flexibility in your plan so that you can adapt to any changes in Social Security or the economy that might come along, by looking at things on an annual basis.
And, rising costs are another issue of concern. And so if Social Security is shrinking, the question is, what can retirees do to help prepare for, let's say, inflation and even increasing expenses?
Yeah, overall, there's not much you can do about your increasing expenses and inflation, right? We can't really squash those. However, we can look at the other side of that, and that is creating more income to help offset those things. And we do that by taking a look at where your money is. I sit down with folks all the time that, that they want to being really, really extra conservative. And I get it, right? But the problem is that we need growth because that can help fight possible inflation. And growth a lot of times means that we need some exposure to the stock market, not 100% exposure, but we need some little bit of exposure to the stock market. The other thing we can do is adjust your withdrawal strategy to stay aligned with the current market conditions and to maintain the long-term stability. And then lastly, let's don't forget that we've got inflation, but that's going to not just talk about food and energy and that kind of stuff, but it also goes to rising healthcare costs, which seems to be rising faster than even inflation. All of this in a bundle is one of the reasons that, several years ago, I worked hard to develop a process that we call our core retirement design, where we sit down and help people design the retirement they always dreamed of. We look at 3 key areas that are vitally important when we start looking at retirement. One is risk, and that's big. We don't want to take too much risk, but we need to have enough risk in our portfolio to keep up with inflation. Second is taxes. We want to make sure that as folks retire and prepare for retirement, that they are putting themselves in the best possible light when it comes to taxation for them, their spouse, and their family. And then lastly is the income planning piece, where we want to put together a strategic income plan that's going to allow you to know where your money's coming from and to know how much that you can spend year in and year out without busting your portfolio. Folks, give us a call today at 863-877-1188 to get started on your core retirement analysis. Again, that's 863-877-1188.
We like to remind you there's no cost, there's no obligation to sit down with Phillip and his team at Statler Financial Services. That number again, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. If you're just now joining us, we're talking about the possibility of the Social Security Trust Fund running out of money even sooner than we thought. So we're going to continue this conversation, Phillip, because this topic is very scary for a lot of people. So why is it so important for people to just avoid panicking, though, or making any emotional financial decisions during this time?
Well, here's what I can tell you from my history and just being in this business for so long is that panic only leads to mistakes. So look, you need to stick to your retirement plan and avoid reacting impulsively to the headlines, because headlines are going to come and headlines are going to go, but you need to have a plan and stick to the plan. Work with a financial professional who can help guide you and keep your decisions grounded in long-term goals. Folks, we don't look at short-term measurements, 3 months here, 6 months here, a year there. If we did, we'd be all over the place with all the stuff that's happening right now with tariffs and, the new big, beautiful bill that just passed. All that would really hamper us. And so we need to make sure we're looking at long-term. And then make small, steady adjustments rather than dynamic changes. We need to keep our plan on track during uncertain times. And sometimes we might have to tweak something here or there, but nothing huge as I look at it.
Well, these are really good insights. And so other than Social Security, Phillip, what are some other ways that we can create a reliable stream of income in retirement? Because that's the overall goal, is to make sure we have enough income in retirement. So what are some ways that we can create some reliable stream of income?
So reliable streams of income, I think we look at a couple of things. One is we want to look at portfolio dividends, dividend portfolios that will give you some consistent income is one method we can look at. The other thing that people don't like to talk about a lot is annuities. Annuities are great at providing a steady stream of income over your lifetime. A matter of fact, Danielle, I was just talking to a client of mine the other day, and unfortunately, they're having some health issues, and looks like they're probably going to end up in an assisted living facility. And they have an annuity that has an income rider on it. And I sat down with them and looked at it and said, your income rider actually will double for 5 years. The first 5 years, you're in an assisted living facility. So he said, oh man, that will help me really and truly save some other money when I sell my house. I can invest that and let it grow and use this other money for those more pressing expenses right now. So just an area where some annuity income can really be helpful, Danielle.
And, as we are continuing the conversation around Social Security and income, how important is it, Phillip, to think about preserving your wealth in retirement, especially with Social Security facing challenges?
Well, Social Security benefits, they may be taxable depending on your income level. I mean, that's going to be a big deal because we want to preserve tax efficient planning as much as possible, and preserving your assets can make a big difference. And so Social Security, it's a tax. It could be taxable. Some people have to pay tax. Some people don't. It's a weird formula you got to go through. But I would say this, consider Roth conversions, especially now with the big, beautiful bill, because we've extended some lower tax brackets for a little while. So that's good. Plan which accounts you're going to draw from year in and year out to help manage that tax liability. I mean, it's one of the things we do in our core retirement design and income planning process is to look at that and make sure that we're putting things in the right places and we're drawing money from the right places at the right time to, reduce taxes as much as we possibly can.
And as we're coming to a close, really quick, Phillip, Social Security, as we know, can be really foundational to a retirement plan. But what would you say to anyone that is still feeling this uncertainty about the future of Social Security?
I think that if you have a plan in place, Danielle, and you look at that, then that plan, you can look at that plan and say, what happens if Social Security is gone? Or what happens if Social Security gets cut in half? You can see where you are and what it's going to look like for you. So it all boils down to having the income plan in place, because that will drive confidence. It'll drive your income. Yeah, we might have to tweak it here or there, depending upon what happens to Social Security, but it's a plan and it's a starting place. Look, it's completely natural to be worried about the future of Social Security, especially as we're trying to put together your plan for retirement. But here's the thing. Panic and emotional decisions are not the answer. The right way to face these changes is with a clear, proactive plan. And you don't have to do it alone, folks. We're here to help you prepare so the potential of Social Security shortfalls won't catch you off guard. Here's what we can look at. We can develop a personalized roadmap, which is our income planning process in our core retirement design. We can help you build diversified income strategies to help reduce our reliance or your reliance on Social Security or any single income source for that matter. Things like inflation, rising healthcare costs, those things, we can help you squash that fear and give you some financial confidence. So don't let fear stop you from taking action. Act now. Schedule your core retirement analysis. It's a simple 30-minute phone call. You and I will talk about where you are, where you want to be, what you need to do to get there. I'll answer your questions and make sure that you're on the path to the retirement you always dreamed of. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
There's no cost, no obligation to speak with Phillip and his team. That number again, 863-877-1188. Stick around. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. We have more coming up right after this.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly doesn't. With fears of a potential recession and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? Here in the Sebring area, financial advisor Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services have seen uncertainty come and go. Phillip can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 863-877-1188 now to meet with Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. Call 863-877-1188 and schedule your visit today. 863-877-1188. Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the show here on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler. He's the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. Now, did you know that if you're running your own business, then you've got a few extra twists and turns on the road to retirement, right? No 401k, no problem. But today we're going to be digging into how you can get retirement ready when a corporate 401k isn't part of the picture. Phillip, we're coming back into the show here. Are you excited about today's topic?
Hey, I am, because I have been dealing with small businesses and their retirement plans for probably 30 years. But it's been one of the things that have been back in my accounting days. We would help small businesses really look at the options that were out there and try to figure out which one was the best one for them. And there's a lot of options out there that the small business owner can use.
That's right. And I think it's important that we're talking about this today. And I kind of want to kick us off here with an article from Investopedia. And it states that as a small business owner, you are completely responsible for your own retirement planning. If you have employees, you may feel responsible for helping them plan for a confident retirement. That's a lot of pressure. So, Phillip, how can these small business owners prepare for retirement?
Well, I think that one of the things that they need to do, it obviously depends on what stage you're in that business and development. But one of the things as you're getting closer and closer to retirement is you have to have an exit strategy. You need to understand, how are you going to get out of this business? You got to prepare, think about ways to sell your small business because at some point, you're going to want to exit and truly retire. And so, some of the things is you have to know how to operate without you, because most small businesses, Danielle, the owner is the operator. And so you need to understand how to run a business without you being the operator. And that will help you really focus in and help somebody want to buy your business because it makes it easier for them. The other thing you need to do is you have to look to see what is the ideal buyer for your business. And every business is going to be a little bit different when we look at that. I think that when we look at businesses, it's interesting how they come to form and then how they grow over time. And I think that's one of the areas that you just have to look at. And I think a lot of people, Danielle, when they start a new business, they don't think about the exit. I know I didn't. I just wanted to help people, both when I did my accounting practice, I wanted to help small businesses and individuals pay the least amount of taxes possible. And when I started the financial planning business, it was more about, hey, look, I want to help folks be able to retire comfortably and to enjoy their retirement. And so that's really the focus when you start a business is you're there to provide a service, you want to help. And so we don't think about what's the exit strategy until we get well into the game. But it would help, though, if you think about the end at the beginning. It will help you develop a plan that will be better in the long term.
Phillip, you're right. There's so many things you have to consider, especially being a business owner. And I think one of the challenges for people who own or work for a small business is the lack of an employer-sponsored retirement account. So let's kind of talk about the options for retirement savings for people who don't work for a big employer.
Absolutely. So there are a few options for small business owners when it comes for being able to save for retirement. Some are more pro-business. Some are more pro-owner. And so you have to kind of look at those things, right? You've got a SEP IRA. And a SEP IRA is for self-employed individuals or their employees. You got to have at least one employee, but you got to participate. All your employees have to participate. So you can't just give it to yourself. You have to give the same thing to each, not the same dollar amount, but the same percentage to each of the employees. Then there's a simple IRA, which is one of my favorites. It's for any self-employed individual or employers with 100 employees or less. You have to have less than 100 employees total. Then you get into the little bit more complicated ones to a degree, and that would be a solo 401k. And this is for self-employed individuals that have no employees, or just them. And so that's one that's you can max out how much you can put away for your retirement. Now, there's one more step that we need to look at too, and that's just a regular 401k. So if you have employees, then you can look at putting together a regular 401k. Now, they're a little bit more costly than the other options that we mentioned already, but they also can give you more options if you have employees that will benefit you in the long run. We don't talk about employer plans and retirement plans a lot on our show. We mostly focus on individuals and planning for their retirement. Well, I want you to know that they're kind of the same, right? That you got a plan. That's the whole thing. And if you are an owner, operator of a small business, I'd love to help you. I'd love to help you find the right retirement plan for your company. And give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. And we can walk through the process and determine which plan may be best for you. Again, that number is 863-877-1188.
We want to remind you that there is no cost, there's no obligation to talk with Phillip and the team. If you need help with your own retirement plan or if you have specific questions, don't hesitate to call 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Now, Phillip, let's also talk about how the retirement transition can be challenging really for everyone, especially when you leave your job behind. So how do you help guide people in saving for retirement when it's time for that season?
Well, I think it comes down to planning, right? If you don't have a plan, then you don't know what direction to go or how to get there. And the plan, I mean, we can plan at any point in time, right? You're going to retire in 30 days. We can put together a plan. You've already retired, and now you need to know what to do. We can put together the plan. But the ideal situation is that we start couple years, maybe even 5 years before you're going to retire, start putting together that plan now so that we can then kind of track it. Are we on track in year 3, year 4, and year 5? Hey, I'm going to retire this year and everything looks good. Pull the trigger. We're ready to go. And so I think that's really what I would look at, is just making sure that we've got a plan in place to deal with all the differences that happen in life when we actually retire, Danielle.
And Phillip, are there things that business owners and really anyone going into retirement might want to think of, especially when it comes to their lifestyle in retirement?
I think so. I mean, I think there's some things that you really have to think about when you look at retirement. Too many people, I think, focus on the money. How much do I have saved? What am I going to do with it? How am I going to plan with it? Well, I think there's even more important questions than that. What are you going to do in retirement to keep yourself busy? And that's a big deal, because I will tell you from my experience that having that question answered ties directly back to the money and how long it's going to last. Because people that don't have a plan on what they're going to do with their time, they typically will overspend because they're bored. And that can be detrimental to your retirement. Other things you need to look at, though, is where do you want to live? If you're retired, you don't have to live where you live now. People here move to North Carolina or Tennessee or South Carolina, those places. People up in the north, They moved down to Florida. They want to be where it's going to be warm. You need to look at what's the cost of living going to be where you plan to retire. And then lastly, and again, part of our core retirement design is where's your income going to come from? How are you going to get that income? And is it going to be enough? Those, I think, are some really important questions that folks need to answer, because if you don't know where that income's coming from, how can you have the confidence to enjoy your retirement? And I would, again, emphasize that having that income plan in place can really bring certainty to the time you get ready to retire. And that's one of the things that we really look at, Danielle.
You're right, Phillip. When it comes to retirement or anything in life, we know that income is the foundational key to an overall retirement plan. So let's kind of also go into, are there certain things that go into creating a comprehensive retirement income strategy?
Well, there is, Danielle. We look at a couple things when we look at income. It is one, how do we maximize Social Security? What's your Social Security going to be? And when's the best time to take it? Do you have a pension? If you have a pension, how is that going to play into our overall plan? And then what buckets do we need? And so that's really what we look at is if we don't have a pension, well, then we know we have to create one. And so we'll look at the options to create that pension for you, creating a lifetime income that you can outlive. These are important things when we look at kind of how that retirement looks going forward. Danielle, so many people out there, they don't have a written retirement income plan. They just haven't put one together. And so I'm going to say it's less than 30% of the people out there actually have one. So I'm guessing that most of you don't have one. Mm-hmm. So look, it comes down to a couple things. One, you don't know how much you've saved until you really kind of start counting. What does it look like for you? And then how are you going to spend your money? Where's it going to go? How much do you need to spend? Too many people look at it the other way around. They look at how much have I accumulated? And that's great, but how are you going to spend it? And if you spend too much, then you're not going to have enough to live off of. And so that's why I think it's important that folks have a written retirement game plan in place that they can look at, that they can track, they can make sure that every year, okay, I'm in line with my expectation. I still have the amount of money I think I should have. My income is what I need. And so it gives you that track to run on. If you don't have one, if you don't have a written retirement income plan, please don't head into retirement. Give me a call, 863-877-1188 for our core retirement analysis, where we'll look at where you are right now and see if you're on the right track to the retirement you always dreamed of. If you're not, I'm going to suggest some tweaks that you may need to make. And if we can help, we're going to tell you, hey, look, this is some things that we think that we can help you with. If there's areas that you're doing really well in, we're going to tell you, you don't need us. You're doing great. Just keep doing what you're doing. But it comes down to that core retirement design. Give us a call at 863-877-1188.
We like to remind you there's no cost, there's no obligation to speak with Phillip and the team. It's very simple. Call that number 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Phillip, I always appreciate your great insights here. You want to stay with us because small business owners, they face some unique challenges in preparing for retirement. Now, if you're your own boss, this next segment is for you. We're going to walk through how to prepare an exit strategy in some of the factors that you might want to consider as you head into retirement. Stay with us. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you're paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit StatlerFinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler. Hey, we're talking about small business owners and the unique challenges that they face in preparing for retirement. So if you're your own boss, things look a little different for you as you prepare for retirement. You don't really get to just pick a retirement date and just walk away from your job. So, Phillip, one step that small business owners don't want to really overlook is creating a business exit strategy. Walk us through that process.
Absolutely, Danielle. You know, a lot of folks out there think that of an exit strategy as a way to end the business. But you should probably think of it as a plan that will move a business toward long-term goals and allow for a smooth transition to another owner. So all exit plans will be different depending on a lot of things, right? The size and type of business, you know, but it boils down to the end goal for all of them is to help create a foundation for future goals and new directions. And so you need to decide what will be done with your business when you decide to call it quits. So you decide to, hey, I'm going to retire. Are you going to close up and just liquidate it? Or are you going to sell it to a new owner? These are things that you need to plan out. And so it's best to think through your plans well ahead of time so you aren't making emotional decisions about your company and its futures. And I'll just say this, as I've worked with in the accounting industry, so many business owners, you know, have I'm just going to say an unrealistic expectation of what their business is worth. And that's sad to say a lot of times, but you know, so many small business owners feel like their business is worth more than it actually is. And the reason for that, the reason it's not, is they don't have processes in place. You know, it can't be run by somebody other than the guy that started the business. So there's things there, Danielle, that need to be put in place well ahead of time before we're gonna sell it.
You know, there's no point in doing it by yourself. It's very simple by giving Phillip and his team a call. There's no cost. There's no obligation. That number again is 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. So we're talking today about small business owners, but there are also some similar steps that we think that everyone might want to make as they are getting closer to retirement. So Phillip, another step for small business owners is to appraise the value of their business assets and investments. Can you walk us through that process?
Well, yeah, you know, it's really easy to overestimate how much your business is worth. So it's good to get a valuation from an independent appraiser who understands how businesses get evaluated, and they can come up with an accurate number that what your business is valued at. And that's a good starting point. And so if we're expecting a certain amount of money from selling the business for your retirement, but the business sells for less, folks, that can be very challenging, right, for you as you prepare to retire. And I've seen that happen before, right? I've seen small businesses who are transitioning into retirement, and they think their business, you know, is worth a couple $100,000, but they can't get anybody to buy it for that. And they end up selling it for maybe $95,000 or $75,000 because that's what the assets are worth. And so that can be very challenging for folks. And so same thing with your assets and your investments. If you're, not a business owner as well, if they aren't worth as much as you thought, you'll either need to adjust your lifestyle or you're going to have to figure out another plan for income. I mean, that's really kind of what it boils down to. And so when we look at that, it's important to understand the penalties for taking from your retirement plan too early. Some plans will make you pay a penalty to access the funds, and others might cause the accounts to lose principal or interest. So there's chances that you could lose out on tax benefits as well as avoiding access to funds until you retire. That's really what's going to be best for you. Is if it's a retirement asset, let's don't access that money early. I've seen business owners do that as well, Danielle, is, hey, they hit a rough patch in their business, and so they go and they rob from themselves in their retirement plan and take money out of there to help fund expenses going forward. And let me just encourage you to not do that, to find a better way to make that happen. So talk about retirement plans and retirement. The other thing that I've seen, Danielle, I want to mention this real quick because this happens more often than I'd like to see it happen, is people retire and they want to start a business. And so what do? They take the money out of their retirement account. A lot of times paying a penalty, because the IRS charges you a 10% penalty if you're not 59 and a half. A lot of times taking that money, paying penalties, paying taxes to start a business, and a lot of times, as well-meaning as they are, they're underfunded and it doesn't survive. So now we have a failed business and no retirement assets. Folks, make sure that you're getting good counsel when you start thinking about starting a business. Now, I know that may be a little off topic, but I think that from my experience, it's one of those things that I see pop up occasionally, and it can be devastating to a retirement plan, for sure.
Phillip, you're right. It's really good that we have these reminders in knowing the best ways to start a business, especially at some point you're going to reach retirement and you need to have enough income. So even let's go into how much should you save for retirement? Where should you save it? And how can you make sure that it will last after you leave your job for good? These are some questions that you probably have to ask yourself as you're getting closer to retirement.
Danielle, those are good questions. And savings is a good place to start, a really good place to start. And getting ready for that next chapter in your life, you need those things. But you need to do more than just save money. You need an income strategy after you stop earning a regular paycheck or running a business. And if you're listening to me right now and you don't have that income strategy and it's not written down, it's in your head or in your advisor's head, and it's not written down for you to look at and to follow, then I invite you to give us a call so that we can help you create the budget you're going to need for the retirement you've always been dreaming about. Help you uncover some of the main risks posing a threat to your retirement, including things like inflation, the stock market volatility. We're seeing it hit highs, potential tax increases, skyrocketing health costs, all things that can eat into your retirement. Learn about the options of generating income in retirement and learn about ways to keep your current standard of living in retirement, even as costs continue to creep up. Folks, it's a complimentary analysis, no obligation for the listeners today. If you've got at least $250,000 saved for retirement, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis, where we'll talk about where you are and where you need to be. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188.
Do not wait. Do not hesitate. This is the time now to get assistance, get help with your retirement plan. Phillip and the team will take care of you. It's very simple. There's no cost. There's no obligation. Call the number 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Hey, we want you to stay with us. We're just getting started here on the Statler Financial Radio Show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Phillip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit statlerfinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Welcome back into the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin. Here with me is Phillip Statler. He's the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. Right now, we're going to talk about how retirement is like starting a whole new chapter in life. For some, it's exciting. For others, it can be very overwhelming, but there are ways to make it enjoyable. So today we're going to go into 5 tips actually for a happy retirement. So Phillip is here with me and we're going to lay out the 5 tips for a happy retirement. Phillip, are you ready?
I'm ready, Danielle. Let's see what we got here.
Okay.
Tip number 5. We'll go backwards to the number 1 spot here. So tip number 5 is this. Focus on your health before you retire. Don't wait until you retire to start looking at your health. Focus on it before that. Staying active and eating well now will make a big difference later. Do things like regular checkups are important too. Don't forget, do that. Get the checkups. I can tell you from experience, right? It is that as a man, we don't like to go to the doctor. But I got to tell you, going to the doctor can save your life. As most of you know, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and I found it not because of some blood test, but because I went and got an actual physical. That's what you need to do. Get an actual physical. Make sure that you're getting regular checkups because that's important. Retirement is hard to enjoy if you're not feeling your best, Danielle.
These are some really good points to think about, Phillip, because we don't want to wait until the end or wait for the worst to happen. So get ahead of it. So this is really good to keep in mind here. Okay, let's move on to tip number 4.
Tip number 4 is build new social networks. So that may sound weird, right? But when you stop and think about it, when you were at work, you had a whole group of people at work, your work friends that you saw every day. Well, when you stop working, you may lose that daily interaction with your coworkers. So if you don't replace that with something else, with new social connections, it can get lonely. So by joining activities or volunteering, those are great ways to meet new people, or maybe even, I know some people, I talk to them all the time and say, hey, look, I'm getting together with my old work friends. They'll do dinner or lunch, once a month or something like that, just to stay in contact. So there's ways that you can do that, but you're still going to need to build new social networks to be able to make sure that you don't get lonely, which will bring depression, and you don't want that in retirement.
Definitely. Community's everything, especially in retirement. Every day is Saturday. So this is a great opportunity for you to find some people who are like-minded like you and hang out with them. So really good to know. Okay, next is tip number 3, which I think has to do with family, Phillip, right?
So yes, family, Danielle, it is a big deal. Our family needs to know that we're retired or we're planning retirement. That's important. But here's what you have to do. You have to put some boundaries in there, right? Because people might assume that hey, you're retired. You have lots of free time. You can keep the grandbabies all the time. You can do this all the time or do that all the time. But you need to lay out some boundaries to help avoid misunderstandings within your family. Share your plans so that they know what they are, what you plan to do with your time, what you're going to do when you're not keeping those grandkids or doing that kind of stuff. Maybe you're going to do a lot of travel. Well, they need to know that so they know when you might be available and have that conversation, because otherwise it can be not a good situation. You want to make sure that everybody's on the same page when it comes to your retirement.
Definitely really good insights there, Phillip. So communication is definitely key here. Let's also keep that in mind. Now, tip number 2 is more about time management. So what can retirees do?
So that's a big one, Danielle. Tip number 2, structure your days. Now you think, well, I retired because I don't want structure. Yeah, but you know what? If you don't have structure, then you don't do anything. And we don't do anything, then every day gets to be a long day. So we need to have structure. Retirement doesn't mean that you're doing nothing. So plan your time, plan your activities. What are you going to do? How are you going to spend those 8 hours a day that you normally went to work? How are you going to spend those days? Get into some kind of routine that make your days feel more fulfilling. I know that I've had clients that over the years, I had one client, he retired, moved to Florida, and Danielle, he golfed 4 days a week. He said, that's my job. 4 days a week, I go to my job and it's playing golf. And so he knew what he wanted to do. I have other clients that they enjoy fishing. And so they're going to go out and they got so many days a week, they're going to go fishing and enjoy time out on the water. But they have that routine. You have the client that I think it was Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Those were his golfing days. He stayed off the golf course Saturdays and Sundays because that's when the people that worked went out and played, right? So he would boycott the golf course on the days that working people would be there because he didn't have to be there those days. So it was kind of neat to see how he structured his life, and even now he's got a few health issues, and so he can't go out 4 days a week, but he goes out 1 or 2 days a week now, and still goes out and hits that golf ball and has a good time out on the golf course. So having some structure is a good thing when it comes to retirement. And so you want to, whether you're volunteering or you have some other responsibilities, you want to get some kind of structure in your retirement.
Really good tips to keep in mind. Definitely makes sense, especially in retirement. You don't want your days to just be moving past you. You're just going with the flow. So time management is definitely key here. Okay. And finally, we're coming to reach tip number 1. And in your opinion, Phillip, what is the most important thing to live a happy retirement?
So remember, tip number 1 is you need to approach retirement like a new job. Think about what you want to focus on, like a hobby or volunteering, or maybe it's learn something new. Hey, take some time, go to learn how to use ChatGPT. I mean, there's some things that you could really go out and do that could be interesting and useful. Learn a new language, so there's things out there that you can do, but the key is that we need to be, like I said, rule number 2, stay structured. But part of that is having things that you like to do, have a purpose. This keeps you energized. When you have a purpose, a sense of purpose, then it gives you some energy to go out and do some things. You need to have a plan. How much are you going to travel? I do that. I have clients that we sit down and we're getting ready to retire, and they said, Phillip, this first year or two, But we've got things planned out, and we're going to take these certain trips. I've got other clients that they retired 5 years ago, and their key was, we want to do some travel. And I sat down with them at a review the other day, and I said, okay, what travel plans do you have? Well, we just haven't got around to really, putting it all together. And COVID kind of slowed them down. And so, they're still putting their emphasis on that instead of looking ahead. Let's put something on paper. Let's buy the tickets. Let's get going. That's what we need to do. We need to plan out what we're going to do in retirement. Otherwise, you know what they say, if you fail to plan, you're going to be in trouble, right? We don't want to have that happen. We want to have a plan in place and follow through so that you can have the retirement you always dreamed of.
Very beautiful insights to keep in mind, Phillip. So you've shown that retirement isn't just about money. It's also about staying active and healthy, and most importantly, staying connected. So what advice would you give to someone who wants to plan better but just needs a little guidance?
Well, my advice, again, is to plan ahead. Think about what your goals are now, and we can help with both the finances and the lifestyle planning so that you're ready when the time comes. I want to go back to the client I talked about earlier, that we look at, you have a situation where you have to look at assisted livings. It comes that time. We're here to help. That's what we help our clients do. It's not about just the money. It's about lifestyle, travel. What do they need help with? We're there to help them with these different planning issues. Folks, again, it all comes down to having a plan in place. And that's what our core retirement design really does. It helps you design the retirement you always dreamed of. The biggest focus is taxes, because we want to have a tax plan in place to help you reduce those taxes to the least amount possible. And then we want to have an income plan so that you are confident about the income you're going to have in retirement, where it's going to come from, and you know what you can spend and not have to worry about what's happening to your portfolios. Folks, is our core retirement design. It's a simple phone call, 30 minutes, you and I on the phone, discussing where you are, where you want to be, and how are you going to get there. And I'm going to help you in any way I can to make sure that you get to where you want to be in retirement. Give us a call to get started. It's 863-877-1188. 863-877-1188 to get started on your core retirement analysis.
We want to remind you there's no cost, no obligation to talk with Phillip and his team at Statler Financial Services. That number again, 863-877-1188. Get insights important to your retirement future today, 863-877-1188. That's all the time we have today, Phillip. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in to the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good day.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation. This radio show is a paid placement.